What's going on, everybody? We have found the best build for clearing tier 100 nightmare dungeons in Diablo 4. This Shred Explosion build is nuts. You're doing insane amounts of damage while staying super tanky and also having a lot of self-healing for the sustain. I promise it doesn't matter the dungeon, it really doesn't matter the affixes. This build will get it done no matter what. I ran about 10 Nightmare dungeons earlier, getting them done in anywhere from like 5 to 7 minutes, literally not dying at all unless it was to something stupid, and that honestly is on me. I promise you guys are going to want to try this build out. Alright, first we'll go ahead and talk about the skill tree and what makes this build work. You're going to want to start in Storm Strike and then grab free Storm Strike to keep people vulnerable. Then we come down here and we get Shred. Shred is going to be our main damage for this build along with Bulwark. Now you want to go ahead and go down into Primal Shred so that you get the dash, and that's going to give us the mobility, which makes Shred so important. Then we're going to grab 3 ranks into Predatory Instinct. Down here, you want to max out your Earth and Bulwark. Now, you're not gaining extra damage from the additional ranks in Earth and Bulwark anymore. That was changed earlier this season, a few weeks ago. But it is still going to give you a lot more life and a lot more sustain, helping you survive in these insane situations that tier 100 Nightmare dungeons bring. Now, you want to go ahead and go into Innate Bulwark. This is where our other main point of damage is going to come in. Then you want to throw 3 points into Vigilance, and you want to grab Bloodhowl. Just 1 point into Bloodhowl and then into Preserving Bloodhowl. Bloodhowl is really important for this build because not only is it going to give us that increased critical strike speed, but it's also going to give us a ton of sustain with it healing you for 20% of your maximum life. And honestly, you're pretty much going to have that. You're going to have these two off of cooldown, which we'll cover in a second how that's possible. So you're just about always every few seconds re-healing yourself for another 20% of your maximum health. Then you want to grab one point into Clarity just for the extra spirit, since you are transforming so much every time. We're pretty much always going to be in werewolf form, but when you pop Bulwark, then it will take you out of it for a split second into human form, and that will proc. So it's not like a huge amount of sustain, but we had an extra point laying around, and I felt like it was a good place to put it. Then down here, we're going to go into Hurricane, and then we're going to grab Savage Hurricane. That way we get the 20% damage reduction. You're going to throw 3 points into Crushing Earth, Safeguard, and Stone Guard. You're going to come down here, and you have to put a point into Neurotoxin. Then you want to just put 1 point into Toxic Claw. You only need 1 point because we're really just trying to get the poisoning damage effect, and you're using Shred so much and you're critting so much that this should proc the majority of the time. And then you want to throw 3 points into Envenom as always. As for our ultimate skills, you're going to want to go 3 points into Defiance, 3 points into Natural Disaster, 3 points into Resonance. We do use Cataclysm for this build. I just honestly like how much damage it brings to the table. We're dashing around and shredding so much that I don't really like using Petrify and stunning everybody. I think just the extra AoE damage and then additionally helping make people vulnerable again is more worthwhile. Then 1 point into Quick Shift. We're going to throw 3 into Heightened Senses just for the extra damage reduction, since we are pretty much always shape-shifted into a werewolf is really nice. And then for our key passive, we are going to use Nature's Fury. Now you're probably wondering how Nature's Fury is going to fit into this build for such fast cooldowns. Well, we are still using Symbiotic Aspect, but then we're also going to couple that with Nature's Savagery. Werewolf skills function as storm skills for Nature's Fury key passive. So this is really important because we're able to proc our Symbiotic Aspect when we are using Shred. Shred is a werewolf skill that we are going to be using the greater majority of the time. You can pretty much just hold down Shred and teleport from mob to mob. And it is one of the fastest attacking abilities in the game and our fastest attacking ability. So it is proccing that symbiotic aspect all the time. allowing you to then have your Blood Howl and your Bulwark come up honestly every few seconds. All right, and then for our Spirit Boons, we're going to go ahead and use Wariness for the damage reduction. You want to go ahead and use actually use swooping attacks for the 10% attack speed. That way you're shredding that much more often, able to proc your Nature's Fury even more often, and then get your cooldowns back. Then I use Avian Wrath for the 30% critical strike damage. Using the Talons wouldn't be a bad option either for the 5% increased critical strike chance. There's debate whether this actually works. Some people say it's additive, some people say it's multiplicative. So I know a lot of people are using Talons instead, but that is entirely up to you. Then you're going to use Bolster, Fortify for 15% of your maximum life when you use a defensive skill. We are using our defensive skills so often, it's pretty much just a free an extra 15% fortification every couple of seconds, and we're spamming 2 of them, so really an extra 30%. This is hands down the best one to use for the wolf. And then we will be using Calm Before the Storm. That way we're able to get our ultimate backup that much more often. Alright, now that we understand the skill tree and how everything works together, let's go ahead and talk about gear, stats, and the rest of the aspects. On your helm, you're going to want maximum life, cooldown reduction, barrier generation, and total armor. And then I go ahead and use Aspect of Might for the extra damage reduction. Now you do need to auto attack for that, so you still do want to Storm Strike every once in a while. It is nice for the additional spirit that you gain back as well. So make sure that depending what the duration is, you are at least auto attacking every few seconds to keep up that extra 20% damage reduction and the 15% that you get from Storm Strike. So really it's an extra 35% damage reduction just from simply auto attacking every couple seconds. For your chest, you're going to want to run double damage reduction, maximum life, and then barrier generation. Barrier generation is going to be huge for this build because that is where all of your damage from Earth and Bulwark is coming from. So we are going to run it on everything that we're able to. I do have a lot of bottom rolls for for barrier generation, unfortunately, so I'm not doing as much damage as I could, but you definitely want to make sure that you have it on every piece of gear you're able to. Then also for the aspect, we're going to run Vigorous. That way you gain an extra 15% damage reduction while shapeshifted into a werewolf. That's also really important just because we are almost always in werewolf form. So we're just gaining a ton of free damage reduction. For our gloves, you want Storm Skill cooldown reduction, attack speed, critical strike damage with Earth skills, because again, that is buffing the crits that you're getting from Bulwark, and then critical strike chance. And then I use accelerating aspect on there. Critical strikes with core skills increase attack speed by up to 25% for 5 seconds, allowing us to shred even faster and get our cooldowns back even faster. All of it truly does play together perfectly. Then on our pants, we're going to want to run quad damage reduction and then disobedience for the aspect. We're going to gain a ton of our takenness just through our pants. Everything else is a little bit of damage reduction, some utility and max life. So we do want the quad damage reduction in our pants. Then for our boots, you want to have movement speed, damage reduction while injured, total armor while in werewolf form, because again, we're pretty much always in werewolf form. And then spirit cost reduction. Spirit cost reduction is also a really important thing to have on this build because Shred does use a ton of spirit. So anything that you can get to reduce that helps out immensely. And then also you're going to want to run Ghostwalker while unstoppable, and for 4 seconds after, you gain up to 25% increased movement speed and can move freely through enemies. On our amulet, you are going to, as we talked about before, you're going to want symbiotic aspect. I don't have the perfect roll on here. I only have 7 instead of 8 seconds, but still 7 seconds for the cooldown is really good. As for the aspects, for the affixes, you're going to want total armor, rings to NM venom, cooldown reduction, and spirit cost reduction. I'm missing spirit cost reduction on mine. I have earth skill damage, which is nice for the Bulwark, but I promise you are definitely going to want that spirit cost reduction. If I had to give one up, I'd give up total armor, the 3 most important being the 3 ranks to end venom, cooldown reduction, and spirit cost reduction. On our rings, you're going to want vulnerable damage, barrier generation, maximum life, and critical strike chance. You do want that on both of your rings. Luckily, I was able to get a god roll on both my rings, which does have us in a really good place. Then you're going to want to run Night Howlers. That way, Blood Howl increases critical strike chance by 10 seconds. In addition, Blood Howl also affects nearby companions and players for 3 seconds. So if you're running in a party, it's nice. But if you're running solo, the extra 10% critical strike chance is huge, especially since it's pretty much always active for you. And then again, you want Nature's Savagery on the ring for the aspect. As for the weapons, we're going with one-handed and a totem on this build. I definitely think it is the best for this build because we are gaining so much from the barrier generation and utilizing Bulwark that I think the cooldown and barrier generation that we're going to get on our totem far outweighs anything that a two-handed can do for us, or even Crone Staff. Since we're not really auto-attacking, we're using Shred and not Claw. On your totem, you're going to want cooldown reduction, barrier generation, critical strike chance, and then either more spirit cost reduction or some damage reduction. I roll damage reduction on mine, but spirit cost reduction could also be a really good stat to have here. If I found one that had spirit cost, honestly, after using it for so long, I do think I would switch it out. And then you want to use Crash Stone for your aspect. Earth skills deal up to 40% more critical strike damage to crowd-controlled enemies. And then on our one-handed, you're going to want an axe as always. And you want critical strike damage with Earth skills, critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and then willpower. Now, one key thing to talk about, I use Natural Balance on my one hand. Casting a Storm skill grants your Earth skills 45% critical strike damage for 4 seconds. So, although Nature's Savagery does make it so werewolf skills function as storm skills, that's only for Nature's Fury key passive. So you do want to make sure that you are storm striking every few seconds. That way you're getting the extra 45% critical strike damage from your Bulwark. But you're also, because of the damage reduction you get from the storm strike, it is super important to make sure that you are auto-attacking at least once every 3 to 4 seconds. Then for gems and hearts, we're going to go ahead and do emeralds in our weapons. That way we're doing the extra critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. We're putting diamonds into our armor for the extra barrier generation to do that extra damage with Bulwark. You're going to run the Barber as always. Now you do want your Barber as close to 2 seconds as possible. For the fight with Lilith, you want it over 3 seconds as close to 4, but when you're farming tier 100 dungeons and just killing mob after mob, the lower the cooldown, the better on your Barber Heart. Then you want Revenge. That way you're getting that extra bit of damage reduction. And then Inexorable Force, so that you're pulling everybody in every time you pop your ultimate, so you can do that massive damage to big groups of mobs all at once. Then for the Paragon boards, we're going to use 6 total boards and 5 glyphs, unlike the 6 glyphs we try to utilize in most of our builds. This Paragon board we did actually find from Moxie, another Diablo 4 content creator on YouTube. You guys should definitely check him out. Has a bunch of really good builds and guides for the game. For the glyphs, though, that we're going to be using, we're going to be using Exploit for the vulnerable damage. Then you want to use Spirit for the enhanced critical strike damage. We're going to use Territorial for not only the damage reduction, but also the increased damage to close targets. We use Shapeshifter. Shapeshifting has a 20% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike. And since we are shapeshifting so much, that is proccing a lot, and it's definitely well worth running. Plus, the bonus to the rare nodes around it is nice. I don't have mine fully leveled up just yet, but it still is very effective, and I can tell that it is working. And then we want to go Undaunted. That way we're doing the extra damage while fortified, and we're pretty much always fully fortified, and we're gaining some extra damage reduction while being fortified. I will have a written guide in the description and as the pinned comment. That way you guys can go ahead and follow along the entire Paragon board yourself. I know it's really difficult during the video to do so, so definitely make sure to check that link so that you're able to follow the guide. But I do hope you guys enjoy this build. I hope this video helped you out. If it did, don't forget to drop a like, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and most of all, click that bell and subscribe to the channel so you know every time I'm posting new content.